Hey guys, Sean here, and you know what? We have got a lot to look forward to across the final three races of the 2025 season. That's Vegas, Qatar and Abu Dhabi, with hopefully, and I will say that word again, hopefully, lots of great racing and action to come. As well as that, though, there are also quite a lot of things still to be decided, and we're going to get answers to a lot of questions over the next 3 weeks. So I thought today we'd run through some of the bigger things that are yet to be wrapped up in 2025. I suppose you could call it a preview for the final 3 races, or the final run-in if you really wanted to. Now, firstly, the biggest and most obvious thing that hasn't been decided yet is the Drivers' Championship title. More expert analysis for you right there. A few weeks ago, I made my final prediction on this and said that Lando Norris would come out on top and take the title, mainly because things really seem to have swung his way. And since I said that, the trend has certainly continued, so I stand by that prediction. Going into the Vegas race weekend, Norris holds a 24-point lead over teammate Oscar Piastri and sits 49 points clear of Max Verstappen. And whilst I will never write Max off until it is mathematically impossible, it does look as though realistically it is now a 2-horse race. Of course, absolutely, anything can happen and one DNF from Norris could swing things again, but right now it looks very tough. In fact, he could be wiped out of title contention as early as this weekend's event in Vegas if he comes away from the weekend 58 points or more behind Norris. I do still think it's a bit much to say that Norris has one hand on the championship trophy now, but he is certainly touching it. That said, as we've seen plenty of times this season already, things can change very quickly, and as already touched on, if Norris failed to score at any race, momentum can shift. So, for example, if he crashed out in Vegas and Piastri took the win, the Aussie would retake the championship lead by a single point. 24 points is a nice lead, no doubt about that, but one big mistake could be hugely costly. But whoever is going to come out on top in this one, I just really hope it goes down to the wire. It's not all about the drivers, though, as there are still some big things to be decided in the Constructors' standings. Sure, the title was mathematically decided a while ago and realistically decided, well, months ago, really. But there is still the battle for P2 to be wrapped up, and whilst it may not seem that important to be, as Ayrton Senna more or less put it, the first of the losers, the financial implications are absolutely massive. So yes, it does matter to the teams. With 3 races to go, Mercedes hold the advantage with a 32-point cushion over Red Bull in third, with a 36-point gap over Ferrari in fourth. That may seem a lot, but don't forget there are 43 points available for teams on a standard weekend and 58 on a sprint weekend, so that can definitely change very quickly. However, whilst the money is important, more on that shortly, there is a silver lining for teams who fail to make P2, as they will receive more wind tunnel testing time thanks to F1 scaling. The higher you finish, the less wind tunnel time you get. The lower you finish, the more you get. And that in any season is always going to be significant, but with the huge new 2026 regulations kicking in, it could be more important than ever next season. So whilst teams will always want to finish as high as possible, they are racers after all, it's not the end of the world if, for example, they end up P4. As for my prediction, I think second place will go to Mercedes. Why? Well, Red Bull is largely relying on one driver, so with both Mercs scoring well and on form, it's hard to see Max be able to keep that fight up on his own. And when it comes to Ferrari, they are all over the place at the minute, and it's hard to see them finding the consistency they'll need over the final few races of the season if they are to overhaul Mercedes. So Mercedes P2, Ferrari P3, just with Red Bull in P4. That's my prediction. If, as far-fetched as some of you might think it sounds, Yuki Tsunoda can start to find form himself, then maybe Red Bull have got a shot at P3, but I think Mercedes look good for P2. Another battle in the team standings, which has actually been really fascinating to keep an eye on this year, is the battle for 6th place or maybe even 5th. On that note, Williams currently sit in 5th place with a nice 29-point cushion over Racing Bulls. And with those teams in the midfield scrap more often than not fighting for tail end points, it feels as though Williams should be able to hang on to P5. So I am going to call this the battle for P6, and that is a battle and a half between certainly 3 teams and arguably even 4 teams. Racing Bulls lead the way on 82 points with Aston Martin just 10 behind. Then come Haas, who are just 2 points further back, and then probable outsiders Sauber, who are 8 points off Haas and 20 away from Racing Bulls. But while the focus is on who will finish 6th, don't forget that every position is hugely important to every team in that midfield pack. As one example, Sauber may well be outsiders for 6th place, but they sit just 8 points behind Aston, so if they can take P8 from the American team, that could be worth as much as an estimated $10 million in prize money. That is not a small amount for a team like Sauber, even though they will have big backing when they become Audi next year. So no, it may not be for title glory, but this fight will be so important to keep an eye on, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and that's for sure. But while I'd love to sit here and say Sauber will claw that gap down and take P6, not impossible given some of their results this season, it would be great fun. I think looking at form, Racing Bulls will take 6th place. Aston Martin have been a bit all over the place and look vulnerable at the moment, so I'll go with Haas for P7. And do you know what? Yeah, Sauber P8 with Aston in P9. Okay, that'll be a very rough end to the year for Aston Martin. However, just bear this in mind. Adrian Newey working on next year's car development at Aston Martin and extra wind tunnel time to go with it. That's not a bad silver lining, is it? Alongside those bits, there are a couple of other things to be decided. 2nd place in the driver standings may not come with any prize money, but it does come with personal pride for drivers and perhaps some bonuses from their teams too. Much like the championship title fight though, this will be tough for Verstappen as he sits 25 points behind Piastri, but given the Aussie's recent run of very disappointing form and the Dutchman's impressive turnaround since Zandvoort, it's certainly not impossible. It is also worth keeping an eye on Kimi Antonelli as he could yet overhaul Lewis Hamilton for P6, which given his mid-season drop-off, to put it mildly, would be very impressive. The other thing to watch out for with Kimi is that he could still take his maiden win at some point in the final 3 races, Vegas arguably his best shot, and a win in his debut season would be one hell of a way to sign off in 2025. Also, on Drivers' Championship placings, the fight for P9 is tight with 4 drivers, Nico Hulkenberg, Isack Hadjar, Ollie Behrman and Fernando Alonso separated by 3 points, and the rest of the pack aren't a million miles away either. Carlos Sainz, for example, is just 2 points further back. Again, no prize money, just pride and possible bonuses, but it's another one that I can't wait to watch unfold over the next few weeks. And just a sort of honourable mention, I suppose, Franco Colapinto is the only driver who can still score points who has yet to do so. Therefore, keep an eye on him to see if he can end the campaign on a high with a point or 2. It's going to be tough, isn't it, given the lack of pace and inconsistency of the Alpine, but as his teammate showed in Brazil, if the car is in a decent window and strategy is on point, then it is possible, and hopefully he can pull it off. Let's see what happens. And finally, there is the small matter of the full 2026 grid being confirmed with 2 teams yet to announce their lineups. It has been a fairly static market so far, mid-season swaps aside, but changes are expected at the 2 Red Bull teams. Shock horror, Max Verstappen is staying put, as we already knew, but who will be his teammate is yet to be announced, although it looks pretty much nailed on that it will be Isack Hadjar getting the promotion, if we can still call it that, to the 2nd seat at the main team. He has, after all, had a very strong debut campaign. The biggest question mark, though, sits over Racing Bulls, with it widely reported the shootout is between Liam Lawson staying, Yuki Tsunoda returning, and Arvid Lindblad getting promoted. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would keep Tsunoda in 1 seat because his experience of feedback heading into a major rules reset could be hugely important. And I honestly don't think Lindblad is ready just yet and needs another year in F2. He is quick and has tons of potential, no doubt about that, but although he's pulled out some excellent drives this season, he has also made a lot of mistakes. So another year to hone his skills in the junior category wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. So if Hadjar gets his expected move to Red Bull and I was picking my drivers for the sister team, I would go with Tsunoda and Lawson, but that would come with a stern warning, I suppose, to both, that 2026 will be their last chance to impress, and if they don't improve by enough, then they will be ousted for Lindblad at the end of the year, if not sooner. There may well be some other things to decide between now and the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi, let me know down below, but those are the main ones I will be keeping a very close eye on. I know, keeping a close eye on who wins the title, expert analysis once again. But in summary, I am absolutely looking forward to these final 3 races, and I really do believe we could be in for a fantastic 3 weeks of action. Bring it on. I absolutely love this sport. That is it for this one then, but let me know down in the comments what your predictions are for the final run-in and which stories you're excited for over the next few weeks. And on your way down there, please do leave a like on the video and consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future content. A steady start for the channel. Just initially want to try and get things off the ground, but trust me, lots to come in 2026. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Formula Sean, and until next time, goodbye.